Daf Beis Aleph. Welcome to continue where we left off. Daf Brachos Amud Aleph. So we're discussing when is the right time to say Shema. There's an evening Shema and a morning Shema. The evening we said it's from when the Kohanim go to start eating Truma. We understand that to mean at night. The Tzeis HaKechavim, when the stars come out. And that's the same time when it's the appropriate time to say Shema for the evening. But that's with Amar Mar. It's about 11 lines from the bottom. Amar Mar. The time to say Kohanim start eating the Truma. Mechti, let's see. Kohanim, emasakachli Truma. When do Kohanim eat Truma? Mishas says HaKechavim, from when the stars come out. To clarify, you have Shkia is when the sun sets. Then you have what's called Bein HaShmoshes. It's a certain amount of time, which is a question of how much time, but it's a certain amount of time from when the sun sets until you could actually visibly see three normal-sized stars. It's called Bein HaShmoshes. The Shmoshes means servants. The two servants. The servant of the day, which is the sun, it's Hashem, and there's a servant of the night, which is the moon. So between the two servants, there's a certain period of time. After the sun set, the stars are not yet visible. So when do Kohanim eat Truma? They eat from Tzeis HaKechavim, from when you can see the stars. Lisni asks the Gemara, let's learn Mishas Tzeis HaKechavim. Why does the Mishnah have to tell you in a cryptic way? So just tell us straight. When is Shema? Tzeis HaKechavim. What's the point of going around? And for the Gemara, Milsa Agav Urchei Kamash Malon. The Mishnah wants to teach us something by the way. We are talking about the time of saying Shema. Once we're already talking about that, we have the opportunity to teach us another halacha, another law which is important, which has to do with the night as well. What is that other halacha? Kamash Malon, Kohanim emasakachli b'truma mishas tzeis HaKechavim. When could Kohanim start eating Truma? The Mishnah is coming to tell you, you should know that for them it's the same time, it's when the stars come out. Well, Kamash Malon, and what is he really teaching us here? What didn't we know before? The kapara lema akva, that the kapara carbon is not holding back from him to eat his Truma. Let's explain. When a person has certain impurities, okay, there's 4 impurities that have to have a carbon after they become pure. There's 3 steps. They have to wait, whether it's a day or 7 days, whatever it is. Before the end of the final day, they go to the mikvah, and then they have to wait for the sun to set. And then certain cases, they have to bring a carbon afterwards. So the Mishnah is telling you that a kohen, if he waited the day, he went to the mikvah. Once it gets dark outside, he is now tahar and he could eat truma. He still has a carbon he has to bring, but that carbon could be burnt tonight. It could take till the morning. He could already start eating truma. And that's the chiddush of this Mishnah, when it doesn't tell you that Tzeis HaKechavim, he wants to teach you that detail about the kohanim. Yeah.
I thought carbonates were brought at night.
They're not brought at night, very good, but they're shechted during the day, but it could still take time for it to burn the fats and so on. It's not finished being burnt yet and so on. And also, that's one example how that could play out. So you should know, the Mishnah is telling you in the discussion about Shema that a kohen does not have to wait for the carbon of kapara in order to eat his truma. A kamashon the kapara lema akve. Kidetanya, as we went in a brayso, there's a pasuk that says in Parshas Emor, Rabbi Shemesh v'toher. The sun comes, meaning the sun sets, v'toher, and he's pure. Bias shimshei ma'akvate milechol b'truma. So we learn out from here that we're very specific. The sun coming, meaning the sun sets, is all that matters for him eating truma once he went to the mikvah. Ve'ein kaparasei ma'akvate milechol b'truma. But the carbon which is brought for a kapara, that is not ma'akiv him, doesn't hold back, and he can have truma once the sun sets. Now the Gemara doesn't accept that so quickly. The Gemara says maybe you're learning wrong the pasuk. We're learning the pasuk. The Torah says the sun comes and he's pure. But there's another way that you could understand those 3 words. Uba hashemesh v'toher. What tells you that this word uba hashemesh, the sun comes, meaning the sun's coming, v'hai v'toher tahar yema, and the Torah here means that the day passed. Dilma bias erehu. I'll explain in a second. The ma'avitir tir gavra. The Gemara says like this: you're learning that Uba Hashemesh, the sun came, V'toher, the sun passed. and now therefore I could eat truma. There's another way to learn this, the same pasuk. You could say, Uba Shemesh, the sun came. Doesn't mean the sun set. It means the sun came, it rose tomorrow. So tomorrow morning when the sun comes up, then v'toher, this person is toher. I want to clarify again. There's two ways to learn this pasuk. You could say Uba Shemesh, the sun came, which means the sun set. V'toher, and it passed. The sun passed. It set and it's gone. And now it's night and I'm toher. The Gemara says maybe learn it otherwise. Maybe learn Uba Shemesh, meaning the next morning came and the sun is back up now and didn't set, it came. The tar and the kohen is now tar, which is the exact opposite. You can't eat truma when it tastes like a chav until the next morning, unless you have a carbon that was brought earlier. But if the carbon is still burning, you have to eat mamash till the next morning. Maybe it means that the sun is coming up. It means that the person is tar, not that the sun passed. So toher, we know tar to mean purity, but tar also means passing. So the sun passed. So maybe it's the exact opposite. Clear?
What is that word morning? Is that opposite? It's like,
Okay, not opposite, but instead of the nighttime, it's opposite meaning of the sun came. Does it mean that it set or it means that it rose? In that sense, it's opposite. Let's look at a few Rashis here before we get Bias Hashemesh. That's the end of the sun coming, in this case setting. The Yalef Lekaman, as he's going to learn later. Dilma Bias Eirei. First Rashi on Beis Amud Beis. Sheyoir Hashemesh b'yem hashmini. The sun will shine on the 8th day. The Yitar Ha'ish Atzmai. The person himself will become Toher. By bringing his carbon, and then he could eat truma. So you have to wait for the carbon to be completely brought. Everything is finished, and once it's the next morning, now he could already eat from the truma. So we have a question: what tells you to learn it this way and not the other way? The Gemara answers: Amar Rabbi bar Rav Shila. Rabbi bar Rav Shila explained: Im kain, if it is the way you're saying that the sun passed means that it passed completely, and now it's the morning. Yitar. I'm sorry, if it's the way you learn that the sun came the next morning and the person became tar, then the pasuk should have said, Yitar, the person, the kohen is now tar. But because he says v'toher, that means passing. Tahar yema, the day passed. Not the person is tar, but the day passed, the sun set, the day finished. Like people say, it's an expression, the Arif Shimsha, the sun set, v'idki yema, and the day. So because the pasuk says vitar and not v'yitar, that teaches us that it means the sun passed, not that the person became tar. Okay. Now it's a very interesting thing. The Gemara is going to tell us that in Eretz Yisrael they were learning the same Mishnah and they had the same question, but they didn't have Rabbi bar Rav Shila to explain it. You know, the Avira of Eretz Yisrael Machkim, the Avar of Eretz Yisrael makes you wise, and sometimes you could see the Gemara was written in Bavel. It was learned in Bavel, in Babylonia. And those that were in Eretz Yisrael, which today it seems like it's close, but as far as they were concerned, it was very far. They didn't see each other for the most part, have any communication. They had a similar question. So let's see what happened there. The Gemara says, B'ma'arava, which means Eretz Yisrael in the west. They didn't hear this whole shot, this answer of Rabbi bar Rav Shila that it should have said the Yitar, and therefore it means the sun passed. Ubola, and they asked the same question. Does this word in the pasuk in Parshas Emer mean the sun came, it's set with tiar and the day passed by, meaning it's night now? Or maybe bias eirehu, it means that the sun came the next morning. And it means that the person became tar. They answered the same answer. In other words, they came to the same conclusion as we did, as the Gemara did. The Hadar Pashtula, they answered it mibraisa from a braisa. Midikotani mibraisa, from this that we learned in a braisa, further that we're going to learn it in a minute. The braisa over there says, Simin ledavar tzeisach yechavim. The braisa is talking about learning Shema. When the kohenim come in, and the Gemara says, you want a hint to remember, stars coming out, that's the sign to remember. And because the braisa, which is the same authors, if you will, as the Mishnah, uses this term, so we know for sure that if you have two choices to explain the pasuk, day passed, which is the way we're doing it, or the person is tar, we're going according to the day passing, which means it's nighttime, and you don't have to wait till the next morning. Because the Braisa, which is a good enough authority for us, of course, says Tzeis HaKichavim. Shma min al bias shim shehu. So we learn from here that it means the sun came. What does vitar mean? It means the day passed. Yeah, at night. So in summary, how do we know? Or let's go back even further. Why does the Mishnah not tell us straight? You know when you say Shema, when it gets dark. Because it wants to teach you this halacha about koyanim. By saying that, when you say Shema, when koyanim eat truma, you're teaching us two things. When to say Shema, and that koyanim do not have to wait till the next morning or till after the carbon, but once they went to the mikveh and now it's dark outside, they could eat their truma. Okay, let's catch up the Rashis. Im kain the high kra, this pasuk v'tir lashon tzivayu. It's a command. In other words, that the person is now tired. Name akra v'yitar kamay v'tahir. My v'tihir. The pasuk should have said v'yitar. What does it say v'tihir? Which could be understood as passing. That's what he's trying to tell you, that they passed. Idki, this is a way that people speak. In Aramaic, idki means lashon ovar, it passed. Ispana min ha'elam hashemesh. The sun has left the world. V'tihir. Now it's nighttime. The sun is gone. In a Jisrael, they learned it from a Braisa. The Ketana Lekamam B'Shmaitim, we learned later in a Braisa, Mishah she'akoyanim nechnasim lecha v'trumasan. From when the koyanim go in to eat their truma, Uray ledavar tzeiz hakichavim. Shma mina in kaparasa makvatan. So you learn from here, because the Braisa uses the siman of tzeiz hakichavim, we now know that indeed bringing the carbon does not hold them back from eating truma. Okay, obviously we're not going to accept this so simply. Let's go further and try to understand and learn even more. What are the times of saying Shema? I just want to give a brief reminder. There are three opinions when the time to say Shema is, or when the end of time saying Shema. From when Kohanim go to eat the Truma until the end of the first Ashmeira, the first period of the night, which let's say we're dividing it into three. So you have about 4 hours. Second opinion is, Zmani is right, halachic times. The second opinion is till chatzais, till midnight, and the third one is until the next morning. That's the nighttime Shema. And now we're going to bring various different sources to try to clarify many details in that regard. Amar Mar, we learned Mishasha Koyanim Nichnasim Lechol B'Trumasan. The time of saying Shema is from when Koyanim go in to eat their truma. I could slug this up. I have a contradiction here to that statement. What's the contradiction? We learned in a Braisa, when do you say Shema in the evening? From when the poor person goes in to eat his bread, the melach with salt, until the time when he comes to finish, to leave his meal. So let's understand. You have a poor person. It doesn't take him a long time to prepare the meal at all. He comes home from work, he just cuts a piece of bread, dips it in salt, and he eats it. It also doesn't take a long time to eat it. It doesn't take 3-4 hours. When he's done, he's done. So what's the time of saying Shema? In our Mishnah that we learned, it's Koyanim, and there's a whole different discussion, 3 opinions when it ends. This Braisa says very simply, when the Koyanim, when the poor person goes home to eat, which is a very, very basic meal, it's a quick meal, until he finishes, whatever amount of time that is, 15, 20 minutes, then that's the beginning and the end of Shema, which is a complete contradiction to what we said. Okay, so says the Gemara, Seifa vaday pliga masnisin. The end of this Braisa for sure argues on the Mishnah. Reisha milema pliga masnisin. The beginning, who says it argues on the Mishnah? So the end time is an argument when it ends, because it sounds like it ends very quickly. In other words, the night doesn't end, but the time of Ulushachbecha, when do you lie down to go to sleep? People lie down at a certain, when the poor person comes home to eat, that's the time, the Mishnah time to go to sleep. But the end, that's not a contradiction. But the end is definitely a contradiction. When does that time finish? Right. A real discussion here is it Tzeis HaKichavim or a little bit earlier? The sun sets. Is now the time to say Shema, or do I have to wait half an hour or whatever it is until you mamish have stars that are visible? You could debate if it's 3 bigger stars or regular sized stars, small stars, but there's a certain period of time to wait. As we're going to see, if you get into a poor person coming home to eat, and how long it takes him to prepare or not to prepare his meal, that changes it drastically. Reisha says the Gemara, Reisha milema pliga masnisin. You really want to tell me that the beginning argues on the Mishnah? Loi, ani v'chein chad shiurahu. A poor person and a kohen is the same shear, which means, the same amount of time. So, thank you. So the right now it sounds like it's a contradiction. You said a poor person. Our Mishnah said when a kohenim starts to eat the truma. With this brayso says when a poor person goes to eat. Sounds like it's different. I says no, it's the same exact amount of time. How so? So, right. So we're saying that the poor person has a the chad shiura is not about the end time; it's about the beginning time. They both start eating by tzeisak kichavim. Rashi says in Rashi chad shiurahu tzeisak kichavim. Let's go back to two Rashis though. Very interesting. Why is a poor person different? Why does he eat earlier? A poor person, he has no candle in his house, so he has to eat right. It starts to get dark. He eats right away. Someone else, they could wait. They could turn on the lights, turn on the candle. It's the beginning of Shkia. Yeah, it's a little bit like now. Right. So normally, I was going to say, you work by day, and when the day's over, you finish. So a kohen could wait till it gets dark outside, maybe tummy, whatever. But the poor person, it's very quickly, as soon as possible, he's going to eat. Because we learned over here, because over here we learned that till when is the end of time of saying Shema until he gets ready to finish his eating. It's not like Rabbi Eliezer who said till the end of the first Ashmera, not like Rabbanan till Chatzos, midnight, and not like Rabbi Gamliel who said till the morning. It's a totally different time. When you go to sleep means the beginning of time of lying down. And the Mishnah says till the end of the first Ashmera. That's the earliest time, which is a contradiction. Oni kol leisav, the kohen tamei lachal b'truma. Oni and kohen, Oni every one of his nights, and the kohen who is tamei, it's the same amount, the same time. How are we going to say this? Because we're going to learn a little bit differently. Let's. I'm going to argue with you. You're telling me that a poor person and a kohen is both tzeisak kichavim. We have a different brayso which is going to contradict that. This following brayso says, when people start to eat their meal Friday nights. Why is Friday night different? Because during the week, when you come home, you start preparing your meal. Friday night, you can't cook. It's Shabbos. So technically, you end up eating your supper earlier Friday night than you do during the week because everything's already prepared. So that's an earlier time. So you can't tell me that a kohen and a poor person is the same time. Forget poor person. The brayso doesn't say poor. The brayso says, this other brayso says, when regular people, it doesn't matter, poor, not poor, when they eat Friday night. It's not tzeisak kechavim. Today, davening of Shabbos is obviously longer than during the week, and no one's caught in a rush. So by the time you get home, it could be later than usual. But if you look at it from a perspective of a time, you could daven, once you finish Ma'ariv, Shabbos, right away you eat. During the week, you come home, then you start to cook, then you start to prepare, then you start to get ready. So it takes longer. So whatever time that is, which we have to clarify, but Friday night is earlier than the kohen tzeisak kechavim for sure. Friday. Yeah, because you can't cook Shabbos. Okay, so Rashi brings that the poor person, not about Shabbos, but about a poor person, that how do they do Shema? They do it while they prepare. So the Shema issue is an issue, but if you use the example of when you eat, it's going to be a little bit earlier. You're saying that it's still like a kohen because it's still going to be taste anyways. That's because we decided today that we have to say Shema after tzeisak kechavim. If you don't have to say Shema early, if you don't have to say Shema, so Friday night I eat earlier. In other words, the only reason why you're saying you have to wait at the same time is because that's having a ma'ariv. It's a discussion here. When's ma'ariv? We're going to go back and forth a few times to clarify what if it's actually earlier or different than the Koyanim or not. This is a mayor's opinion. Now, it's two opinions, so it's got to be different. The Koyanim is okay. We're going to continue with Safra Maidiv for Shema, and it's Hashem tomorrow. We will continue. Thanks for joining. Special welcome to those that are online. We should really post a link to where you could see the Gemara online as well.